Hi there, and welcome to Draw with me being Danny Gregory, international traveler, and recently returned New Yorker. I have been on a whirlwind trip to Europe for the last 5 weeks, more or less, and just returned here to New York this past weekend. So I'm really glad to be here with you because I wasn't last week, as you may have noticed. I was elsewhere. Now let me just double check that you are with me too, because I would like to say hello if you are. Let's see, is anybody here? Yes, excellent. Some folks are. Kate Robertson in Idaho Falls, and Bjorn Knopf in Frankfurt. Brad Henson in Wickenburg, Arizona. Interesting. I was in Phoenix earlier this summer. Annette in Denmark. Catherine in British Columbia. Tracy in India. Hello, Tracy Wilcott. Nice to see you. And it's been a while since you were my very wonderful host. Sabrina in Germany. Carrie in London. Maria in Atlanta. John in the Scottish Highlands. Lucy in Quebec. And Joanne in St. John, New Brunswick. Cynthia in Moscow, Idaho, home of the University of Idaho. Evelyn in the Netherlands. Hey, that rhymes. Or maybe it's Eveline in the Netherline. John in London. Helen Holland, not in Holland, but in British Columbia as well. A lot of people in Canada today. Nova Scotia, MC McDonald. Zlippa Vandergracht in Australia. Celia in Nashville. And many others. Excellent. I'm really glad that you're here. And I will say hello to some of the rest of you soon. Thistle, you may not be happy with me today because I will be drawing on the iPad. But let me explain something about the name of today's session. The name of today's session is whatever. And it's not just because I am reliving my teenage years, but because I decided not to have an agenda. You know, I decided that it was time to just draw without a plan. And I hope that that's okay with you. I hope that that's what you'll like to do too today, which is to just roll up your sleeves, sharpen your pencil or whatever it is that you're going to be using today, and to just draw some stuff. You know, because I think that's what I hope is the spirit of Draw With Me, which is appointment drawing. You know, they have appointment viewing. That used to be like a TV media term, appointment viewing. So I hope that this is appointment drawing for you, to just say, let's get together and just do some drawing. Why not? So that's what I was thinking we would do today. And you know, I've been having a lot of fun drawing this summer. As you know, I've been away, and I find that when I travel, it's often a really great time to draw. It's a really great opportunity for drawing because you're in so many new places, there are new experiences, new things to see, and I don't know, it just inspires me to draw. And also, I think you have some free time, because a lot of times when you're traveling, you know, you get to sit in a cafe, or, you know, you get to, you know, just chill out. And I got to do a certain amount of that. This trip that I took with my wife, JJ, was sort of a vacation, but not really. It was really a work thing. We did a lot of work, and we were working on things for Sketchbook School. We worked on our party that we had in Amsterdam during the Urban Sketching Symposium, and we also got to make some really big plans, working with Kosha on the next incarnation of Sketchbook School, which is something that I will be hinting at probably for the next few months and talking about more explicitly as those plans begin to gel. But I'll talk about all this while I'm drawing. and drinking. But let's bring in the old iPad and do some drawing while we're here, because that's what we're here to do. So I think my subject is going to be me. I haven't drawn myself in a while because, I don't know, there were more interesting things to draw perhaps, so I didn't bother drawing me. But it's time, drawing me is an opportunity to just kind of just I don't know, assess, think about myself. You've noticed that I've started with a black screen. That's not necessarily indicative of anything. I just noticed it myself. But there's a bit of logic to what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed drawing self-portraits because they, well, the obvious reason being how incredibly handsome I am, but another reason being that I'm here. I'm available, and I think drawing oneself is a time-honored tradition. Certainly, when we were in Europe, we saw a lot of Van Gogh drawings and Rembrandt drawings, and those dudes were heavily into drawing themselves. So and with great result. So that was something that is certainly inspiring. But also, I would say, to me, it's always been just an opportunity to say, what's going on with me? How am I? Do I look any different? Now, the thing that I'm starting to draw is not, of course, me yet. It is my bookshelves. And I have to tell you that on my various peregrinations across the European continent, I saw an awful lot of amazing bookshelves. We were lucky enough to stay with various people while we were on this trip. We actually only stayed in a hotel, I think, for 4 nights, maybe the entire 5 weeks. But we did get to stay in people's houses, sometimes when they were there and sometimes when they were not. And when they were not, they had given us permission. We weren't sort of randomly breaking into people's homes. But yeah, so amazing, share with you one of these days. Just that was all about how incredible this was. And there's something about looking at other people's books that's just really interesting. I think you learn so much about a person by seeing what they have in their library. And I love books. Although I have to say, I've been spending more and more on my Kindle books than I have on my whoops, I screwed that up. Than I have on my analog books. So, but I still love books in all their forms. And then we also went to visit Ian Sidaway, and he has an incredible collection as well, not to mention the fact that he's written, 30 or 40 books himself. So that, it was just great. I mean, I think there's nothing more beautiful than a house that has like barely any wall space because there are bookshelves everywhere, and his certainly was that. So that was really cool. So I think having some books in my self-portrait makes sense, because I didn't actually get to take any books with me. I just took my Kindle, and I ended up having to give my Kindle to my wife because she managed to lose hers on the road. So I ended up reading books on my phone, which is kind of gross, but there you have it. Now, another thing that I did, and I'm going to show you this now, another thing that I did when I was there was we went to a lot of museums. And my new obsession, thanks to my iPad, is taking photographs of textures. I took a lot of picture texture. Isn't this great? And so I just kind of stuck my camera phone up as close as the guard would allow me to, and just took pictures of these textures. And watch what happens now. Watch this. See? So now I've turned my books into some bits of Monet. I can slide that around a bit. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I was wondering how that would turn out. So there you have it. That's my background. My background is books. Speaking of books, and this is pretty exciting actually, my book, my upcoming book, How to Draw Without Talent, we finally have absolute confirmation that Penguin Random House is going to actually be printing, publishing, distributing, publicizing, one hopes, this book. I'm pretty excited about that. And this book is really fun. It's How to Draw Without Talent. And it is, I've gone through some ups and downs with this book because the original publisher went bankrupt just as we were putting the last final touches to the mechanical. But fortunately, I've learned that the editor and the designer for the book are being hired freelance, at least, by Penguin Random House in order to finish my book. So, yes, that is really good news. Brad, I know that I'm using Procreate. Yes, I'm using layers. As you can see, here's a bunch of layers that I'm using. So, but just in the spirit of things, I'm going to just be drawing. I'm not going to, this is not a class, I'm not going to be instructing that much, but you're welcome to ask me questions and I'll answer that as I can, but I'm not going to really try and explain that much what I'm doing, so I hope that's okay. I will, of course, be explaining all of this stuff in intense detail in my new class, which is called Be an iPad Artist, because I know that's what you want to do after you have some fun time playing with it. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing that. By that I mean not explaining what I'm doing. Yeah. Now we get to the self-flagellating portion of the program. I'm not really into self-flagellation today. I'm fine. I'm fine. There's nothing to complain about. You know, in spite of eating vast amounts of really good French food and really good English food and sort of okay Dutch food, I'm not as enormously fat as one would think one could become under those circumstances. I'm also, you'll notice, using the slenderizing feature of Procreate to make my face look somewhat thinner than it actually is. Artist's prerogative. I'm giving myself this large dome, which is probably not necessary. Let's see how that looks in a minute. But yeah, so, you know, I look okay. It's coming up to my birthday. I'm getting older, as we all are. And my birthday is it next week? Might be. I forget exactly. But yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up. So yeah, so I'm going to be older next time we meet. I'll be even older, if that's conceivable. Happy birthday, Sabrina. That's excellent news. I'm glad that I'm not the only Virgo in town. You know, I once had a friend gave me an appointment to see a psychic, what's it called, an astrologer, for my birthday. And this person did my charts, my astrological charts, and discovered that I am apparently what's called a triple Virgo. Triple Virgo meaning that, I don't know what it means exactly, but they sort of explained it, which is that my moon is Virgo, my sun, I don't know exactly, but my sun is not Virgo. Actually, my son is Leo. He was born in August, but yeah. So apparently I'm a triple Virgo, and they say that Virgos are intensely, what's the word? Anal? I don't really think I am that anal. Does anybody out there know what the qualities of Virgos are? Kimberly? What do you think? Leveling up. I like that idea, Thistle. That's. I guess that's true. I am. I certainly have more damage points. So, what is it? Triple Virgo. Yes. Detail-oriented. Well, clearly that's not true. I am not detail-oriented. I am sort of impetuous, and I just like to do things, but I don't necessarily really care that much about doing them well. So there you have it. Sorry, astrologer. What else? Conscientious, self-critical, detail-oriented, service-oriented. I guess so. Perfectionism. Detailed. Yeah, detailed. Okay. I'll take that, I guess. I like to think in broad strokes, though. I'm not being detail-oriented with this drawing, I can tell you that much. It looks like some sort of generic man right now. Does not look particularly like me. Thank you, New York. Detail doesn't necessarily denote negative. I think that's, yeah. I didn't think that it was, I'm not saying that it's negative, like persnickety or fiddly. I just think I'm not especially prone to being super detailed. Oops. So this is looking super digital and not particularly like me, but that's okay because that's the way it is today. I did a drawing on Instagram yesterday. I don't know if you've ever done anything like that. It was sort of an interesting experience to be live on Instagram. Here's the thing about it. So somebody had said to me, "Oh, you should try doing this. You can go on Instagram and just sort of show up and do a drawing or do something." And I thought, okay, that's sort of interesting. Let me just give that a whirl. So what happened is I turned on my phone and I sort of introduced myself. Hi, I'm going to do this thing, and I wanted to set up my phone so that because it was aimed down at my drawing. And so I had set up a little tripod thing so I could plug my phone in so it would just sort of sit there. And I went to turn my phone around so that it was facing down and plug it in. And when I plugged it into the thing that was holding it, it compressed the buttons on either side of the phone. And what happens on an iPhone, when you compress the sides, the buttons on both sides, I don't know if you know what happens, but I'll tell you. It calls 911. So my phone, just as I'm on Instagram and people are sort of showing up like, hey, what are you doing? My phone dials 911 and an operator comes on and says, what's your emergency? And meanwhile, my iPhone then says, I am emailing all of your emergency contacts. And I panicked and like managed to turn the thing off. And meanwhile, the thing on Instagram was continuing. It was unreal. It was terrifying and throughout the whole thing, as I was drawing, I kept thinking, did I do this? Did I somehow set something in motion where now like a bunch of like firemen or policemen are going to come and start like knocking on the door while I'm doing this, thinking that something's terrible happened to me. It didn't happen, of course, but man, that'll get in your way. That'll cramp your drawing style. So yes, so it's sort of like, they have this term called swatting that various people do in the gaming industry. Like they will, somebody's like playing a game live, they'll send in a SWAT team as a prank. Yeah, I was essentially doing that to myself. So anyway, I survived, as did my drawing. All right, so this is sort of a youthful, clean-shaven version of myself. Fine. But there's a lot more to be done to make this into more of a realistic portrait of me, at least. All right. So yeah, so be careful with your iPhones. Particularly if you're like in some kind of a stupor. Like I can imagine, like in the middle of the night, like your alarm goes off and you grab the phone and you accidentally summon the police. Can you imagine? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a good thing under certain circumstances, but yeah, not necessarily. Oh Jesus, not necessarily. Yeah, I'm looking at a reflection of myself, and that's sort of what's behind my occasional studies here. sorry, that was a difficult maneuver because I was essentially doing some plastic surgery on myself, and I didn't want to slip and accidentally, injure myself. So I'm back. If you're just listening, I'm hoping that you're just sort of, busily doing some drawing of your own and not bothering to watch what I'm doing, but maybe you're not. So now you know I'm back doing some drawing. Okay, so let us see now. What's this? Okay. Next, I would like to go beyond just a vague outline of myself and see what I can do to make this look a bit more three-dimensional and real. So I'm just adding some shading, some shadow, some dimension. Okay. So Jean-Christophe, he has this enormous library, as I've said, and he has a lot of graphic novels. And I don't know if you know this, but the French have always been, I think, even much more interested in graphic novels and really in the kind of more adult versions of comic books than we have here in America for a long time. I think Americans are getting more interested in graphic novels now, but the French have been, really into it for a long time. And you take something like Tintin, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Tintin, is really not for children. I think it's designed to be, sort of like adult fiction. I mean, it's not sexy and so forth, but it's not R-rated. But it's definitely not a sort of children's thing. And so, and he also is one of these people who he doesn't just buy the one volume. If he likes something, he buys the entire set. So he has like beautiful rows and rows of matching bindings. All right, so that admittedly might be a triple Virgo propensity, which is I love a good set of books. I don't really have that many behind me, but I do love to see, perfect spines in alignment and that kind of thing. Boy, that's really sexy to me. So anyway, so of course a lot of the books are in French, and my French is not great. I have like high school French, and I went to high school in another century, so it's been a while, but you can still kind of look at the pictures and get the gist of things. And boy, he had a lot of really cool stuff. He also has a lot of books that I've never heard of that are about things like urban sketching that are published in France. So the French are also into, I guess it's urban sketching or travel journaling. They have, as they call it, carnet de voyage. They have an annual kind of gathering in France of just a huge gathering of people who are into travel journaling, and there are lots and lots of books published on the subject. It's really, really cool, really interesting, and so I got to look at a number of those there in his house too. That was really cool. Stuff that you won't find in America. I've been feeling kind of defensive about the iPad recently, I have to say. I mean, maybe it's just because I've been talking about it a lot and doing a lot of stuff around it because of this course that we're doing, and and I think that there's certain group of people, and I think I probably would have been one of them, who kind of scoffing at the whole idea of doing this iPad stuff. It's like, why aren't you doing things on beautiful paper? And I have various answers to it, but there's part of me that certainly says, I get your point. It's true. But I also, if I'm being more of a defender of the iPad, I will say that I think that this is a really cool and important medium. That I think that the iPad is, or digital art, let's say, is just at the beginning of its incarnation as a medium, and that that there's so many opportunities to do stuff with it that we don't know about yet, and that we're just going to start discovering as artists emerge. And it's easy to forget that there are a lot of media that we now take for granted, watercolors, even oil paint, that are, they didn't come fully formed out of the earth at the beginning of the dawn of creativity. These are things that were products and categories of products. And, it used to be that you would, if you were an artist, you would just buy pigment and you would make your own art, your own stuff, or you'd have your hapless assistant, what do they call it, apprentice, make it for you. That was certainly a thing, and that's how obviously a lot of great artists started, is basically grinding up colors and stuff for their mentors or their teachers. But I bet you there were people who scoffed at that point. What? Fresco? Why don't you use stucco, or whatever the alternative would be? Why are you using these dang-fangled pastels? Lautrec, why don't you use oil paint like a normal artist? So anyway, people have been talking about that for a long time, and I think, unlike other media, though, I think digital media continues to unfold. So even though when it first began, whenever it was in like the late 80s, when artists, Illustrator, beginning of Photoshop, those kinds of things first started coming about, I think there were a fair number of awful things about it. I mean, it was not easy to use. It did not look great. It looked kind of mechanical, and all that kind of stuff. However, I think that it's really evolved, and there's all kinds of new developments, and the software has gotten better, and the hardware has certainly gotten better too. So and these are things that make it easier to be expressive as opposed to being technical, because I think one of the problems always with making computer art is that you end up thinking about the gizmo instead of thinking about whatever the impulse is that's behind your art making, and that's not where we want to be. We want to be in the creative flow, and so you don't want the technology getting in the way of it. And I have to say that for me, it's like over time, it has become easier because I'm just more used to it. I'm more used to this tool, so I kind of know more intuitively and quickly what to pull up and how to use it. It's not really that hard. It's but the opportunities to do all kinds of things that I'd never done before are the things that keep me mesmerized by it. The fact that I can make all kinds of stuff. So, Beauty in the Gutter, I love beans. I don't see why eating beans every meal would be such a problem. I could eat black beans, baked beans. Why not? And in return, you would have an iPad. And speaking of just the expense and all that stuff about having an iPad, I made this video earlier this week where I just talked about, what if you don't have a brand new snazzy iPad, and what if you have an old iPad, or if you have just a phone, or even what if you don't have an iPad at all, and you just have but you have some kind of a Android device. What then? And and I also asked other people, because I don't know anything about Androids, but I said, can you suggest some alternatives for people? So in the schoolyard, we've been gathering that kind of information, but also I did have this YouTube video. You can see it, and I just to kind of explore, like, what are other stylus options. If you're not really if you don't have the pencil, what do you do? So there definitely are things, and one thing that I'm intrigued by, and I'm really going to experiment with more, is Procreate Pocket, which is an app that is the Pocket version of Procreate that runs on your phone, which means it's kind of cool. I mean, I have some misgivings about it, and that's part of what I plan to explore, which is, what do you do? It's a much smaller way to work, but I've had Moleskine sketchbooks that were as small as my phone, so that's not necessarily an insurmountable problem. I haven't got the stylus thing worked out yet. I've tried drawing with my finger, which is how, by the way, Hockney began drawing on the phone. And it's, I don't know, I have sausage fingers, I guess. No, they're actually delicate like cigarillos. But anyway, they're not the ideal drawing implement, particularly in such a small thing. But I've tried a couple of styluses that I own, not delighted with any of them. And now I have found, yet another opportunity to buy stuff. I did find a stylus that I ordered today. We'll see how it works. Maybe next time I'll do a draw with me on the phone. God, yeah, that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? But why not? Why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I embarrass myself publicly? So, there we go. All right, now let me try something else. Let me dive back into my photo collection again, and this time, yeah. So this is a photo I took of a chalkboard that somebody had scrawled all over, and I thought that was kind of cool as a texture, and I took a bunch of pictures of that, and see how that looks. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. So yeah, there he is. Now I'm going to try some other stuff here. So yes, I do look worried. See, this is the thing, Chris, you bring up my expression. This is what I find is so interesting about doing selfies, is you learn about yourself. And I'm not feeling worried. I'm not feeling worried. I'm really not. But I've had a difficult week, I'll be honest with you. We had a death in the family yesterday, and my wife is actually away dealing with that right now. So that was sort of worrying. I mean, I was going to say it's okay, but it isn't. Somebody died. It's not okay, but it was troubling. And and I'm just kind of getting over being traveling. It was kind of awful because we had to do all this traveling, and then she had to do more traveling. So anyway, But I don't feel particularly worried. But clearly there's some thoughts in my mind. Must be, right? Yeah, so sometimes when you do a selfie and then you look at it, you go, oh, maybe I do have some stuff on my mind. Chris says, a drawing teacher told me once never to get up or answer the phone, and sure enough, when I did my self-portrait, looked like a Picasso split screen. Well, that's not such a bad thing, right? I mean, Picasso. Well, I think I'm going to stop and see if there's anything else I can explain. Kimberly, you're drawing me? So am I. So I don't mind. Yeah. You know what? I have to do something else to this. I'm sorry. This is not good enough. Not that I'm a triple Virgo or anything, but no, that's terrifying. See, that's a bit better. You can't really tell probably on this streaming thing, but yeah. Yabut says it's hard to look happy in a self-portrait while studying your face in a mirror. I know that's not just a function, honestly, of being unhappy with yourself. I think it's also what they call resting bitch face, right? Which is where your face is relaxed and you look sort of sullen or glum, you know, even though you're just kind of being a face. All right. So, do you mind if I just catch up on your comments? Because I realize that you've been talking and I haven't been paying attention. Dana says, I have an Android phone and never thought to draw on it, but I have sketchbooks this small, so I'm looking for a drawing app. I bought an iPad just so I could use Procreate. Well, that's fantastic. You know, I agree with you. I think, for me, obviously, having like this giant iPad is great, but having this little thing, you know, because I think it makes you just think differently, you know, think smaller, you know, and I think that's, to me, it's just like overcoming, because when I've drawn in a small moleskin, and I could show you one. I have some that are literally, I know they're this size, and I've done watercolors in them, but I used a really fine, like a micron, you know, double O or triple O, really small, you know, or a rapidograph, something like that. And I just until I can get this stylus thing worked out, I'm not going to feel comfortable, because I've done a few drawings on it, and I'm just like, they're not ready for prime time, or they're not ready for lunchtime either. So yeah, and as far as Android goes, yeah, I don't know what the drawing apps are for Android. I know that there's that one, is it called Sketch something? I don't know. I know that there is one like fairly major Android one, and it's free actually. Yes, so let me see what other comments we have here. Somebody's mentioning getting refurbished iPads. Yes, I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I think when Apple refurbishes things, they're basically like a brand new thing. I mean, they're often old and they're not the latest hardware, but they're in mint condition, and there's no reason that they couldn't be perfect. And I think also when it comes to the size of the iPad, you can use. I have Procreate also on an iPad Air 2 that I saw refurbished on Amazon for I think $140. So it's not as big as this. It's like that size, but it's a good size, and it works. It does not work with the pencil, but there are a number of styluses, and I talk about them in this other video, so I'm not going to do it again. But yeah, there's certainly great options, and yeah, so good. Autodesk, yes, thanks, Kosha. Autodesk is Autodesk the manufacturer? Is that actually the name of the app too? Yeah, but there's that. And I think when you think about a drawing app, Procreate is $10. Procreate Pocket is $4. You just compare that with, like, if you went to an art supply store, you'd buy a pen for $4. I bought pens from way more than $10. So it's worth trying several, and I have tried several. I ended up with Procreate because I thought that was by far the best. But there are, I would say if you're serious about trying this, invest in a few different ones and see what you like, and then share information about it. Come to the schoolyard and share some information about it so that you can, so we can all learn from your experience. So Colleen says, this is a wonderful portrait, and it would only be better if it were printed and framed on your wall. I'd love to hear your advice on printing. Well, I don't know about that exactly. I could see it maybe. Depends which wall. Wall of my bathroom, maybe. One of the public halls in my stairwell. No, yes, so I actually just wrote a little article yesterday that we're going to be sharing, which is about how do you get stuff out of what do you do that once it's in the iPad you want to get it out. And there's lots of different ways that you can print these files. I mean, it's a digital file, so it is something you can output in Procreate. You can output a JPEG, so you can share it on social media, but you can also output a Photoshop file, a PSD, with all the layers, and you can import it right into Photoshop and continue to work on it there if you wanted. You can export it as a TIFF, again, layered TIFF. I think you can export it as a layered PNG file. I'm not quite sure what you do with those, but you can. You can export it as a PDF, and so you could have it, and you could take that high quality, because you can export it at 300 pixels per inch, which is as good as you need to do a good print. And you can take it to a service bureau, one of these places that do professional prints. There's a million places online where you can just upload your file and they'll print it. They'll do a giclée print for you. They will print it on fabric, so you could obviously do t-shirts and things like that, but you could also design a repeat on fabric. You could, one of the things that I was thinking about is what's so beautiful about iPad art is its light. You're looking at a light box. It's like looking at a slide. You know the difference between a slide and a print in terms of the look of it, right? A slide is like the colors are like jewels. They're glowing because it's light. Light passing through the color. And when you print it on paper, it immediately becomes flatter. However, they have this thing where you can get prints on metal, on aluminum, which reflects light. And so you can get really beautiful, because they do that with photography, and you get this really beautiful look. So that's certainly another option if you want to make something that looked vibrant that way. What else? You can, you could also make a publication out of this. You could do like a little illustrated book. You could create the entire thing in Procreate, each page, because you can add text. You could also output it into Photoshop or InDesign, and you could lay it out. You could also, or you could make something that felt more analog. So you could take this and you could output it as a screen print, right? You could do color separations and do a screen print. You could do, you could make a zine out of it. There's lots of things that you could do to export this. You could also export it. You could also do something like this. Watch this. See if this works. Boom. Black and white. Do a black and white print. Let's leave it in color. Yeah, so I think there's lots and lots of things that you can do with these prints. You don't have to think of them as just a bunch of files on your computer. And yeah, Thistle says you can get prints on glass, right? So that would be cool. You could create a light box, or you could simply get your iPad framed. Have like a series of framed iPads. You laugh. You are laughing, right? But if you ever go and see one of these David Hockney retrospectives, that's what they have on the gallery walls. They have computer monitors, they have iPads showing his iPad drawings, and sometimes in a moving display, or sometimes playing through the this thing. Let me just play this for you, just to be super cool. Remember this? That's right. This is the last 54 minutes of our lives playing out at high speed. Remember those good old days? Remember when I had the large swollen head? Remember that when I was looking really flat and two-dimensional? Remember when the bookshelves arrived? Remember when the shadows were so dark and then they got softer, but then they seemed too flat and lizard-like? Remember how the shirt changed? Remember how the skin texture arrived through the overlays? All that stuff right there. That's the 31-second reprise. Try doing that in your sketchbook. Shower curtains, pillowcases, rugs, blankets, phone covers. I think I'm going to bring out a list of a set of selfie shower curtains. What do you think? Would you be interested in buying a large Danny Gregory set of maybe pillowcases? You could rest your face on my face. I like that idea. Maybe rugs. I could see that. Giant rugs of my face. I could start here, but then I could make them available in the Sketchbook School store, theoretically. I could give them as gifts to my friends and relatives. I think that's the big idea. Thank you, Cable Claire Van Swage. Swage? Thank you. That was an excellent contribution to my creative development. So yes, so there's lots of great. I don't know an awful lot about this stuff, but I don't know a lot about it, but I can see the possibilities. What I've been obsessing with is a thing called newspaperclub.com. And what they are is it's a service that will print one copy of a newspaper for you, or multiples in different sizes. Sorry, they're crushing garbage outside my window. So I've been obsessing with that because I thought, how cool. I love the idea of printing on newsprint and doing separations. That really intrigues me. There's a thing called risographs that I'm really intrigued by. I've never done, but risographs is essentially where screen printing and color copiers meet each other. So you basically are making ink prints using layers on paper through a thing that's like a copier. I don't really understand it exactly. I've seen a lot of zines that are done with it, and they have an analog feeling. They don't feel like color copies, and the color separation can be really beautiful, and it's ink. So that's all really nice. I'm really intrigued by that. I see you guys are talking about stickers. Stickers are nice. Maybe, I actually did I ever do? I've done a lot of like little stickers of my art, but I've never thought of doing just lots and lots of stickers of my face. God, I love that idea. I'm going to add this to my... Would you guys like to see quickly some... I can show you some of the drawings that I did when I was in Europe. How about that? So this is my favorite one that I did. May not be yours, but I really like this. Sabrina, have a nice dinner. I'm sorry that I'm taking up more time than I planned, but I'm going to keep doing this for 2 more minutes. So anyway, yes, here. This is a seawall in Brittany with a railing. This is my friend Jean-Christophe's house that I drew for him, and it's the 75th anniversary of the D-Day, so they have a lot of these kind of U.S. and French flags there. Eiffel Tower in Paris with these huge crows fighting over food in the foreground and tourist buses in the background. An old medieval house. This is a former telegraph building in France. This is the Hôtel France et Chateaubriand, Brittany. This is outside of Kocha's house, the canal, with this little boat that had a plant on it. I was really intrigued by that plant, and a willow tree. Jean-Christophe, nighttime. This is the view out of my window when I was staying in Brittany, of the building across the street. This is some turbot, some fish that we ate that I'd never had before. Some Badois bubbling water. A random monk. A little hut in the backyard. The view from Kocha's window at the street down below. This is also like, I made a piece of animation here with these swans go back and forth, and this guy bicycles back and forth, but I'm not going to show you that now. This is when the canal, I don't know if you remember this, but there was this insane heat wave in Europe when we were there, and then there was a tornado that went up the canal, and that was that. This is a photo collage of random Dutch people anyway. Speaks for itself, like all great art. This is in the train station in Amsterdam, looking at the girders in the ceiling. This is all of the clothing that I packed with me, which was all gray except for this one pink shirt, which got horribly stained with coffee, and I could never wear without getting in trouble, so I never wore it, and I just wore it gray, black, and blue. That's one of the reasons why I'm wearing bright orange today, because I'm sick of it. This is the incredibly complicated coffee setup in Kocha's house, which I could never quite figure out. Actually, I never even touched this particular gizmo because it was terrifying. There's Kocha in the studio doing a drawing. No, she's not actually. She's doing some work when we were busy working. Some little plant that she had there. This is in London, in the street that we were staying in Lucy Rogers' house in Shoreditch. This is me copying somebody else's drawing of New York. This is just being anal. These are people on the train. This is the British Rail train going to see Ian Sidaway. This is the train with a bottle of suspicious looking liquid on the floor. This is just a truck parked by the canal. This is this hunting lodge that we went to, like from the 1920s, that looked like Dracula's castle. This is a tree in Rembrandt Park. This is also in Amsterdam. This is an old hotel that I drew with a bunch of my buddies on a hot day. This is the outside of the studio where Sketchbook headquarters are in Amsterdam. Another incredibly hot scene in hot Amsterdam. These are urban sketchers drawing the canal. This is one of our teachers, Swaski, who was there, came from Spain to do drawings in Amsterdam. And here's Andrea Joseph, looking like she's overcome by the heat. This is a slice of apple pie, which Amsterdam is famous for. Oh, these are people sitting in the flight lounge. One of them is actually from Real Housewives of New York. She happened to be sitting in the Delta Lounge with us. This is just a guy. And oh, this is when our plane was delayed in the airport. We were delayed for like 2 or 3 hours before we left New York. There you have it. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me. I've overstayed my welcome by 3 minutes, but I will see you next week. And I will be older, possibly more wrinkled, possibly more crotchety. We'll see. But I hope that you will have a fun time drawing. You know, here in New York at least, there's not that much great weather left. Maybe another month or two. So I want to get out there and do some drawing and enjoy it. And I'm going to be taking my iPad, and I'm going to be taking my phone, and I'm going to figure this thing out. So keep drawing. Draw on an iPad. Draw on a piece of paper. Draw on the wall. Whatever you want to do. But make sure you draw. Draw with me. Draw without me. Draw. See you in this class. The iPad course starts in like a week and a half. You can sign up for it at sketchbookschool.com. And as is obligatory when you're on YouTube, I need to ask you to subscribe to our channel. If you subscribe to our channel, it's YouTube, the Sketchbook School channel, you'll get notifications when we do this again. You'll get notifications whenever we post videos, which we do at least a couple times a week. You will get that. And apparently we're going to be creating some kind of an email thing too for Draw With Me that will just let you know that, hey, bing bing, appointment drawing, don't forget to show up. But usually it's here, Thursday, noon Eastern Standard Time, unless I don't feel like it. But today I did, and I'm glad you did too. See you next time. Arrivederci. Bye-bye.